So the biggest difference between these conventional dish soaps and ours is that we get 3 bottles in one box. So comparatively, there's way less packaging because we've super concentrated it and we've put it in a backyard compostable pod, which means no plastic. And so we're not also shipping water all around the world. And what's even more fascinating, though, is that we were working with a wholesale company that was interested in taking our dish soap to hotels and other places like that. And they wanted to do a comparison with the more conventional brands to make sure that obviously our stuff could clean up. And it turns out, and here's the sort of third-party test results, we actually performed better than one of the leading brands when it came to removing soil like this. And so the way that the test worked is they took ceramic tiles and they added spaghetti sauce and they let it dry overnight. And then they took another combination of like powdered egg whites, soy, different materials that would sort of harden. And then they took each of the dish soap options and they gave it 3 squirts and a 10-second scrub. And what they found was our super concentrated soap actually outperformed the mainstream brands. Now, that's not going to be the case across the board in all categories. One area in which we do not perform as well as these guys is sud retention. So what they also did was put the dish soap on a scouring sponge, such as our Luffy sponge, and they scrubbed away for, however long, same thing, like the 10 seconds, and then they did multiple plates, and they saw how long the suds would last. And with our dish soap, the suds just didn't last as long. And we already knew that. And the reason is because we decided to opt against SLS. Now, SLS is one of these sort of gray area ingredients, I guess. If you look on David Suzuki's Dirty Dozen, they list it. And when it comes to environmental reasons, one of the primary concerns around SLS is that it appears to be toxic to aquatic life. Now, there's also some questions, okay, is it the concentration that you'll typically find in a dish soap? Is that the problem with SLS? Or is it even when it's concentrated even when it's diluted and just put into the water table, is that an issue? That seems to be less of a concern. But what bothered us about SLS is that it's typically the first 1 to 3 ingredients. And one of its primary purposes is providing that foam and suds, which doesn't actually clean, as evidenced by the little test that we conducted, wherein we did a couple squirts and then did a 10-second clean to see how well it performed. Now, something I should note is after that quick clean and rinse, they weighed the plates, and there still was some residue left on the plate in both the case of our dish soap and the top name brand dish soaps. But there was a lot less on the one cleaned by ours. So is this a perfect solution? No, it's not. But is it moving forward in a whole lot of ways? I think so, because we've managed to completely eliminate plastic packaging. It's so much more efficient because, again, we're not shipping water around the world. Think about how many of these fit in a box. In fact, you don't even need to think about it. I'll show you a box overlay here. You'll see how many bottles we can get in that box versus how many bottles of pre-diluted dish soap you get. And so I think it's a bit of a knockout when it comes to environmental sustainability. When it comes to long-lasting suds, No, we're not going to be as sudsy as some of the name brands, but we've been selling this for 6 years now, and we've decided it's worth it to not have the SLS because overall our customers seem to like it. Now, I know this is like a lot of information on dish soap, but you know, if you're still here, you must be interested. So we go by what's known as the neat method. There's this crazy YouTube video. It's like 6 minutes long. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but he's also being real about it. And he talks about the neat method. So the neat method, and there's still some spaghetti sauce in there. Sorry, that looks a little gross. But the neat method is that you put the soap on the actual scouring sponge as opposed to leaving it like right here in the sink. And the reason is, number one, it's kind of dirty and gross. Even though there's soap in the sink, you're just cleaning the sink in perpetually dirty water. It gets dirtier and dirtier. So the neat method is you put it directly on the sponge and then you can rinse the sponge over time. Or you can also do a couple squirts and then keep some mildly diluted soapy water on the side. You bring out your dirty plate and you rinse. And you'll notice here, like, we definitely have suds. They just don't last as long as things like dish soaps like this, where there is more SLS in the formulation, or there is SLS. We don't have SLS at all in ours. And then if you're wondering about volume, you saw how I made it. It's pretty easy. Just put about 400 milliliters of water, plus you add the pods. You end up with about 450 mils, which is the same as this one here. This is 473 mils. So this one's a little fatter. That's why there's almost the same amount, maybe a teeny bit more, like 20 more milliliters in here. And again, you get 3 bottles in one box. We've eliminated plastic packaging. So I think we're definitely on the way. We're on the move. And like I said, we've been selling it for 6 years. And so you can check out the reviews. There are definitely some people that say they don't like the lack of suds. We even had one customer who said at the beginning, her husband was putting it in the sink and doing the more traditional method where you fill up with water. And he went through an entire bottle in one round of dishes. So if you're going to do it that way, no, definitely ours is not going to match up. But if you do the neat method and you watch that dude's YouTube video, and he would argue that the neat method is the way to go. It's efficient, it's cleaner, and therefore you're going, I think, to get a bigger benefit overall by using our dish soap. Of course, I'm biased. I'm selling this shit. But you get what I'm saying. I think we're slowly getting to that level where we are starting to compete with the big guys with a much more sustainable option. But of course, I know it's not perfect. Our next challenge is how do we bring the price down, because we're not as cheap as the big guys. Another sustainable option, just in case you're in the market, you don't love the liquid, we also sell a bar version. And this one just doesn't seem to be as popular, especially it seems with men. Women seem more down with it. But here I've got our coconut dish brush. You get it wet, you rub it on the bar. You can just keep the bar by your sink in like a little container. And scrub-a-dub-dub. And that works pretty well too. But again, I find the bar just isn't quite as popular as liquid because people are used to a liquid. And you'll see now that this has had a chance to settle, like it's a pretty thick gel. It's like a typical gel dish soap. And it really does suds up. I'm probably at like 6 minutes now. So anyone who's still watching, tell me what I say in the last 30 seconds. Minnesota is a sweet pea, and I will send you a free bottle of dish soap.